one thing that's interesting, and there was a little bit of controversy around that signing in terms of Gunba. It's also like Gunba. I'm not sure if people are aware, but like the guy also basically like is a full statistical analysis guy and coder on the side.
Yeah.
Has been since Overwatch League Season 1, had really solid like results with Boston, with the Valiant. So how did you get to sign him as your head coach? Like, because this is the first time he's in that position, other than
Sure.
if you count the Valorant roster where he split that sort of with packing, and we really don't know what the
Yeah.
deal was there in terms of the.
So initially, he wasn't even on my short list. Like I'd had a short list of coaches that I've kind of asked around and assessed and figured out like, okay, these are my head coaching candidates. I was just talking to Gumba on the side on something completely unrelated to Overwatch, and then like just out of the blue, like I was like, I think I had made an offer to another candidate that got declined, and then I was like, okay, so my number one option at the time had declined. Like, where do I go from here? And I was just like brainstorming, and then like I don't know when I thought of this idea. Maybe it was like after a drink or two. I don't know. I don't really remember. It's been like a blur for the past month or so. Just every night I've been, nonstop just diving into Overwatch, like trying to build the best roster possible for next year. But I was just like, hey, Gumba has built all types of rosters, like has a good statistical background, has a great knowledge of Overwatch. I have a very I highly respect his like coaching ability and his like roster building ability, and I need both of those in a head coach. Because there's some teams where rosters are built, all you got to do is iterate on it, like refine, put a little pieces here and there. We had nobody on the roster essentially except for Yaki. Like I needed somebody that I could bounce ideas off of and build a roster with. And so roster building was a big, it might be unfair to some other head coaches that, they might be great head coaches at coaching and getting the most out of players, but need someone that could do both. And that's a very high like order. That's a very high ask. And then when I looked at Gumba, like I was like, I wonder if, because I knew recently he had retired, or I don't know if retired is the right word, but he quit coaching Valorant. I was like, I wonder if he'd be interested to come back for Overwatch 2. So I just messaged him out of the blue. I mean, it wasn't out of the blue because we were talking about something unrelated, but it was like, hey, any interest in coming back to Overwatch 2? And then he's like, like, maybe that's good timing. And like, I didn't really have to convince him at all. Got him, did the interview, got him signed in like a day. Like it was super easy. Like he wanted to come back. I thought after going through all my options, and going through the resume and what I needed in a head coach, asking references, like he was just by far and away like the most qualified for the position. And I thought, could perform the best and understood the mission of what we had to do this offseason and was like on board and would, and we've been plugging at it ever since.
Right. Now, the thing is, okay, so you guys are already pretty far advanced in terms of, and as are many teams. So if I'm a Mayhem fan, when can I expect new news to come out about the rest of the roster?
Probably when it leaks, I guess, since it seems like Halo's been leaking everything nowadays.
Right.
Honestly, surprised the Majed sign didn't get leaked before we got to announce it. But yeah, probably a leak or two, or 5 or 6, however many announcements remain to be leaked. I feel like you'll probably hear about it first via leaks.
Right. How do you feel about those generally?
Um, I don't have a problem with leaks. I have a problem with the way. I don't have a problem. Okay, I don't have a problem with leaks. I have a problem with the way Halo does some of them. Or yep, maybe it's wrong to point out Halo because but like just generally speaking, I think leaks are fine. My issue is you shouldn't leak things that haven't been done yet. So if a contract has not been signed yet, if it's not actually done, I don't think you should report on that because it's not an actual signing. Like it's just a potential signing. Like I could potentially sign any free agent in the league. Like that's not a story, right? Like that you shouldn't get fans' hopes up and or people's hopes up and adding your own opinion to leaks. I have an issue with that. Like just report the leak. Just be like, hey, Mayhem signed Sir Majed. That's it. Like you're reporting the leak, have an opinion about it in like a separate tweet. Don't tweet out your opinion along with the leak because it kind of just it instantly creates and generates a narrative that you chose. Everyone like let the public decide the narrative, and just report the signing, just report the leak, whatever you want to leak. Like, oh, someone got fired, someone got hired. Just simply report that. Don't add your take on it. Make that a separate tweet. So like those are the two things that I have an issue with in terms of leaks. But just leaking, like that's gonna happen. You talk to, like I came from tier 3, I came from tier 2. Like I know everybody talks. The first thing a player does when they get an offer, they tell people they're signed before they're even actually signed. They're like, oh, I'm going to X team, and it's like, no, you're not there yet. You haven't signed a contract yet. You got a verbal offer. Or even some people do that before they even get a verbal offer. They're like, oh wow, I'm going to X team. I've been invited to like closed trials. Like I'm in. They'll be like, I'm going to this team. Like they love me, and it's like, then that gets, you played the telephone game. Your friends talk to their friends talk to their friends. Someone eventually talks to Halo, and then that's when the rumor starts. Like don't leak rumors, leak facts, leak things that have been verified. And so yeah, that's my opinion on leaks.
Are there any, like, I think one of the things that a community here has a little trouble understanding in terms of the leaks is what tangibly actually changes about which players may be picked up,
Right.
if someone is picked up. Do you have anything that could explain why like leaking something in terms of, and it's possible in other esports, for instance, reporters will report on who's talking to who, and that type of stuff. Can you explain the tangible impact those can have?
So I have no problems with reporting on who's talking to who, but report that after all the signings are done, and then like build this is how this signing came into be through these talks. I don't like reporting on it live or like before anything's done because it impacts negotiations that are happening currently. Like it's a live negotiation, right? Like if there's like, oh, there's reports of me talking to, I'll just use Runaway since they don't exist anymore. So that's, can't say anything about like say I'm talking to Runaway and it's like, if I'm talking to Runaway and other teams know about it, maybe, that affects the negotiations. Maybe like, oh, nope, like Mayhem's Albert's talking to Runaway. No way we let Runaway like go to Mayhem. Like I didn't know, maybe they didn't know we were talking to them that early, and then they come in and they swoop in, and they assault you. So basically, you affected what was naturally, you introduced like a divergence from like what was supposed to happen. You just said you accelerated someone else's timeline when they didn't have that information. Like without that rumor being reported, that information is not out there. And yeah, like maybe I would have signed more Runaway players had it, the leak not gone out in this hypothetical. So that's the problem I have with things are not done. And then beyond just reporting on who's talking to who, reporting on deals that haven't been done yet is just like that could be detrimental because it could create a bidding war. Just one of the downsides is like it can create a bidding war because other teams just start jumping in. Because if you're a team and you're interested in someone and it's reported that like there's a deal done, and you're just like, holy shit, like, from the team's perspective, like it would be negligent if they were on top of your list to not message them and try to, on the off chance that the deal's not actually done yet and try to get them back, right? Or try to, offer them something juicier to come to your team. And so that affects live negotiations. And I have a problem with that. Like, let the teams like battle each other with their like planning but like I don't like when leaks affect outcomes for teams or players. I think that's wrong. Or like if you report someone gets cut before they get cut, or like you could lower their stocks in the off season. And I feel very strongly about lowering like public opinion or opinion of players like form or whatnot via like rumors. Like I think that's just wrong.
I believe 2 players of your last 2 seasons rosters, actually Slime only came in last season, but longtime players of yours have announced retirements. Do you care about the leaking or reporting rather on the retirements of players?
I don't Did ours get leaked? I don't think our
I don't think so.
I think our individual. Okay. Um, I don't actually have as strong an opinion about that as the other ones. So like, I'm just kind of neutral on it. Um, I don't see. I don't really see the benefit of leaking a retirement early though. Like that just seems kind of strange. Like it's not exciting news for anybody, you know? Um I don't know. I think let the player announce their retirement and make it official before you pre-announce their retirement. I think that kind of goes against, yeah. That's similar to what, before it's done, like don't report on it. Like I don't know. Maybe a player wants to like is some players consider retirement all the time. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. Alice like super stressful. Players consider retirement all the time. If you put it out before they're actually ready to make a decision, before the twit alarm comes out, before they come to the decision, you could force them in a situation where like teams stop looking at them. Like maybe I'm sure there's plenty of players that trial that are heavily considering retirement. They're like, oh, this is my last shot. If I don't get any trials, I'll just retire. If you just report they're retired, like a team might just be like, why should we trial this guy? He has no heart in the game, right? Like he's not passionate about the game. He's thinking about retiring. We don't want someone like that. We want someone like more hungry. And like I think that's super messed up. So yeah, I mean, don't report on retirements until the player decides to retire because it could affect, current things they have going on.
Right. What I think many fans would counter to both of those cases, like either like it's on the orgs to do their homework and actually realize who's definitely on the market and talk to these people. It's also not necessarily the reporter's job to keep prices as low as possible. Do you have a counter argument to that? What's that?
Well, I mean, I have a problem with reporting on rumors. Reporting on things that have happened or like are done, fine. But like I don't like the rumor reporting. Like report on things that are happening. And what was the first question again? The first part of that?
In terms of isn't it in the org's responsibility to have an accurate view and not just rely on whatever is posted on Twitter?
But this hurts the player, not the org, right? Like that player's retired. No, it's not like no org's retaining their services. So if someone's out of the pool, then technically nobody made a mistake, right? Except for the player that took themselves out, or that got maybe forced out early. Also, generally speaking, like for orgs, I didn't have time to trial everyone. A lot of people applied. You have to it's just part of the process. Like it's just part of like reality. You have to sometimes make decisions on players that you don't know as well about, or like don't have the time. Like other people are on your list, you rate other players higher, so you prioritize trialing them. If you get to some of the other players, like fine. If not, you have to live with that. And those are all like tough decisions that every team makes when they run trials for the most part. It's very rare that you trial everyone. And I don't think it's a good experience for the players when it's completely open. Because then you got like Torb one tricks. You got all sorts of like things that like you could have filtered out before you got to that point. And it's like why do you need to trial a Torb one trick, right? Like why do you need to trial like some high 4.5 like ladder one trick? Like there's no point. Like you were never gonna sign them. But you just decided you were gonna have it. So I think you can prune it. Also depends on how accelerated. For us, it was way more accelerated. We had to catch up. And so, not saying it did impact. Like I don't think a single retirement pre-leak or whatever affected whether we reached out to a player or not. But those little things happen. Like you see that, and you're like, okay, maybe it's a player that you're on the fence about, and then that is the thing that pushes you over. Oh, he's retired. Cross him off, right? Like I think that's natural. Like any GM's like, oh, he's retired. Like why do we, unless he's so good, you want to bring him out of retirement. Now then it didn't affect it, right? But for other players that are on the periphery, or like maybe they could play on an L team if they wanted to, or get trials if they wanted to. If there's a leak, then and you're like, oh, they're like maybe 10th on the list of players that you want to trial. You just like, okay, we'll pick someone else, right? Like that's just what happens.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned like time is of the essence so often that any additional filter one might get is just useful, especially like communicating player attitude and whatnot. Right, then thank you for the interview and best of luck in the rest of the offseason.